You're lying in bed. It's quiet, peaceful, and then, out of nowhere, your calf seizes up, like it's trying to snap in half. You bolt upright, clutching your leg, teeth clenched. That's not just a cramp, that's your nervous system misfiring, your muscles revolting, your electrolytes throwing in the towel. Now here's the surprising part. While occasional leg cramps happen to people of all ages, for adults over 60, they're often not random at all. They're signals, clues that something deeper is out of balance, often involving the nervous system, muscle metabolism, or key nutrient deficiencies. What most people don't realize is this: leg cramps aren't just inconvenient. For older adults, frequent cramps, especially at night, can reduce sleep quality, increase fall risk, and signal early stages of muscle loss or nerve dysfunction. In other words, a nighttime cramp may be your body's way of asking for help long before things get worse. So what's actually causing them? Here's what the research shows: cramping tends to spike when your brain's control over muscle contraction weakens. That control system, known as neuromuscular function, depends on precise coordination between your motor neurons, spinal cord, and muscle fibers. And like most things, it's affected by aging. But it's not inevitable. Studies show that small strategic changes in your diet can strengthen neuromuscular communication, improve muscle hydration, and reduce the risk of cramping by up to 68%. And that's what we're diving into today: the top 3 science-backed foods that can help prevent leg cramps in older adults and why they work. But this isn't just about food. This is about restoring confidence in your body. It's about improving sleep, boosting circulation, and building stronger legs that support you literally in every part of your life. We'll break down the exact nutrients your nerves and muscles crave, how these foods interact with hydration, and simple habits you can start today. Let's get into it. Let's start with a question. Why do most leg cramps strike at night? It's not a coincidence. In fact, research suggests that our nervous system becomes more vulnerable to certain types of misfiring while we sleep, especially as we age. And this brings us to one of the most overlooked causes of leg cramps: hyperexcitability of motor neurons. Motor neurons are the nerve cells that tell your muscles when to contract. They're like tiny messengers running from your spinal cord to the muscle fibers in your legs. But here's the thing. As we get older, the signals they send can become glitchy, less precise, more erratic. This isn't about weakness, it's about electrical miscommunication. A 2017 study published in Muscle and Nerve found that older adults experiencing frequent leg cramps had increased spontaneous firing of their motor neurons. Essentially, their nerves were sending contract signals even when the body was supposed to be at rest. Think of it like a faulty wire sparking when it shouldn't. But why does this happen? Part of it has to do with decreased inhibition in the spinal cord. Your body normally has built-in systems that act like brakes, calming overly excited neurons. With age, these braking mechanisms can weaken. That means even a small stimulus, like shifting your leg in bed, can trigger a full-blown cramp. Here's the important part. The foods you eat can directly influence how excitable or stable these neurons are. Certain nutrients act like natural nerve stabilizers. They support neurotransmitter balance, reduce oxidative stress in the nervous system, and help restore that braking function. For example, calcium and magnesium both help regulate the flow of ions, like sodium and potassium, in and out of neurons. This flow is what generates the electrical signals your body uses to contract or relax a muscle. If those minerals are low, the whole system becomes unstable. Vitamin B1 thiamine is another key player. It's involved in the metabolism of glucose in nerve tissue, which fuels the electrical activity of motor neurons. Low B1 levels have been linked to neuromuscular dysfunction, particularly in older adults. And here's a surprising one. Research from the European Journal of Neurology found that low levels of vitamin D, long known for bone health, are also associated with increased muscle cramping. Why? Because vitamin D receptors are present in motor neurons. Without enough D, nerve conduction slows down, and muscles are more likely to cramp during low-activity states like sleep. So, what does this mean in practice? It means that leg cramps aren't just about muscles. They're about your nervous system, and your nervous system runs on nutrients. If your diet isn't providing the minerals and vitamins that calm and regulate neural firing, your legs are more likely to spasm when you least expect it. A simple tool to apply is this. Start thinking of cramp prevention not just as a hydration issue, but as a neuronutrition issue. Make sure your meals contain foods rich in magnesium, calcium, B vitamins, and vitamin D. In later sections, we'll get specific. I'll show you the exact foods that deliver those nutrients in the most bioavailable form. But for now, remember this, every cramp has a root cause. And often that cause isn't in the muscle, it's in the wire sending the signal. Strengthen the wire and the muscle follows. If you ask most people what causes leg cramps, they'll say one word, magnesium. And while that's partly true, the full story is far more interesting and more useful. Here's what the research actually shows. Magnesium plays a critical role in cramp prevention, but not in the way people think. It's not just about relaxing muscles. It's about regulating nerve impulses, controlling calcium flow, and keeping your neuromuscular junction, the communication bridge between nerves and muscles, functioning smoothly. Let's break that down. Every time your brain tells a muscle to move, it sends an electrical signal through your motor neurons. That signal hits the neuromuscular junction, triggers calcium release, and tells your muscle fibers to contract. But here's the catch. Those contractions have to shut off just as reliably as they start. That shut-off process is where magnesium comes in. Magnesium competes with calcium at the cellular level. Calcium contracts the muscle. Magnesium helps it relax. Without enough magnesium, the calcium just keeps flooding in, and your muscle doesn't get the signal to stop. That's one reason why low magnesium levels are strongly associated with cramps, spasms, and restless legs, especially in older adults. A 2021 meta-analysis in Nutrients found that older adults with low dietary magnesium intake were significantly more likely to report frequent muscle cramps and impaired muscle recovery. Another study in BMJ Open found that magnesium supplementation reduced nighttime cramping in adults over 50, especially those who were deficient to begin with. But before you reach for a supplement, here's the good news. Some of the most effective forms of magnesium come straight from food, and they're often more bioavailable than what's in pill form. So what should you actually eat? Here are 3 magnesium-rich foods with strong science behind them. 1. Pumpkin seeds. Just 1 ounce gives you nearly 40% of your daily magnesium needs. They're also packed with zinc and healthy fats, which support nerve insulation and repair. Try a tablespoon in the evening as a snack or mixed into a salad. 2. Cooked spinach. 1 cup contains about 150 milligrams of magnesium. It also provides potassium and calcium, giving you a triple benefit for muscle function. Cooking it actually improves absorption by reducing oxalates. 3. Black beans. These are underrated. A single cup delivers around 120 milligrams of magnesium along with fiber and plant-based protein. They're especially helpful if you're managing blood sugar or cardiovascular risk, which often go hand in hand with leg cramps. Here's a simple protocol. Aim for 2 magnesium-rich meals or snacks per day, preferably 1 in the evening. Why evening? Because many nighttime cramps are triggered by subtle shifts in mineral balance that occur while you sleep. Having a magnesium-rich dinner or small snack can help blunt that effect. You can also pair magnesium with foods rich in vitamin B6, like bananas or avocados, to enhance absorption. B6 acts as a cofactor that helps your cells actually use the magnesium you consume. Now, before we move on, a quick note: if this kind of science-backed insight is helpful, consider subscribing to the channel. We go deep into the research, but always bring it back to what you can do right now for your body, your mind, and your life. And if you're already subscribed, thank you. You're part of a community that's learning and growing together. Back to magnesium. One common mistake is relying too heavily on supplements without addressing diet. Supplements can help, but they're only one piece of the puzzle. The foods you eat contain other minerals, enzymes, and fiber that help magnesium do its job, especially in older adults whose digestive efficiency may be reduced. The takeaway is simple. Magnesium is a neural stabilizer, not just a muscle relaxer. It balances calcium, calms the nervous system, and reduces spontaneous firing from motor neurons, all key to stopping cramps before they start. So the next time you feel that twitch or twinge in your leg, think about your last meal. Was there magnesium on your plate? If not, that might be the missing piece. Let's clear something up right away. Leg cramps aren't caused by low potassium alone. Yes, potassium matters. But what matters more, especially after 60, is the balance between potassium and sodium. Think of it like a seesaw. When one side gets too heavy, the whole system tilts, and that tilt shows up as muscle cramps, fatigue, and sluggish nerve signaling. Here's what's really going on. Inside every muscle cell, potassium lives in high concentration. Outside the cell, sodium dominates. Your body uses this separation, this electrolyte gradient, to send electrical signals. When a nerve fires, it shifts those ions across the cell membrane like flipping a switch. This triggers muscle contraction, communication, and reflexes. But as you age, that gradient becomes harder to maintain. Why? Several reasons. 1. Kidney function declines subtly with age, which affects how efficiently your body retains or excretes electrolytes. 2. Many seniors are on medications, like diuretics for blood pressure, that increase potassium loss. 3. Most modern diets are heavy in sodium and light on potassium. And that sips where the problem begins. When sodium levels are high and potassium is low, the electrical balance in your muscle and nerve cells becomes unstable. That instability makes nerves fire when they shouldn't, and your muscles cramp as a result. A 2018 study published in the Clinical Journal of the American Society of Nephrology found that a higher sodium to potassium ratio, even more than sodium or potassium alone, was linked to muscle cramping and overall poorer physical function in older adults. The key insight? It's not just what you eat, it's how those minerals interact in your system. So how do you fix the ratio? Start with potassium-rich foods, but not just any potassium. You want sources that are naturally balanced with fiber, magnesium, and minimal added sodium. Here are 3 powerful examples. 1. Avocados. One medium avocado contains more potassium than a banana, about 700 milligrams, plus it delivers magnesium and healthy fats that support cell membrane function and nerve repair. 2. Sweet potatoes. A single medium sweet potato contains around 450 milligrams of potassium. But unlike bananas, it has a lower glycemic load and comes with beta-carotene, which supports inflammation control. A bonus for aging muscles. 3. Coconut water unsweetened. This is a natural electrolyte drink with a high potassium to sodium ratio. Ideal for post-walk or light evening hydration, especially in hot climates or if you're sweating more than usual. Now, on the sodium side, it's not about cutting out salt completely. Your body needs it, but most people get far more than they realize from canned soups, packaged snacks, bread, and restaurant meals. Here's a simple guideline. Aim for a daily potassium intake between 3,000 and 4,000 milligrams, and keep sodium closer to 1,500 to 2,000 milligrams unless advised otherwise by your physician. That's the balance that research shows supports stable neuromuscular function. And here sits a tool. Use a potassium tracker for 3 days. Just write down what you eat and look up the potassium content. You'll quickly see whether you're hitting the mark or missing by a lot. No need to count forever. Just do it long enough to develop awareness. You might be surprised to learn that potassium is found in all sorts of foods beyond fruit, beans, leafy greens, yogurt, lentils, even salmon. In fact, the Mediterranean diet, known for its heart and brain benefits, is naturally high in potassium and low in processed sodium. What this really means is you don't need to chase bananas or take electrolyte supplements unless advised. You just need to rebalance your meals. Think whole, colorful, plant-forward foods with a good mix of legumes, roots, and greens. Think less packaged salt, more mineral-dense flavor like lemon, garlic, herbs, and olive oil. When you give your muscles the right internal environment, they start behaving better. Fewer spasms, more stability, and over time, better strength and coordination. This isn't set about restriction. It's set about support. Let vets get honest about hydration. Most people think it's simple, drink more water. But if that were the whole story, no one over 60 would be waking up at 3 a.m. with a leg cramp that feels like a steel cable pulling through their calf. Here's what the research and Clinical observation actually shows hydration isn't just about quantity. It's about distribution, timing, and absorption. And when it comes to leg cramps, especially in older adults, those three things make all the difference. Let's start with absorption. When you drink water, only a portion of it actually gets pulled into your bloodstream and your cells. For that to happen, you need the right concentration of electrolytes, sodium, potassium, magnesium, and chloride in your gut. These minerals create an osmotic gradient which helps draw water across the intestinal wall and into your circulation. Without enough electrolytes, that water mostly just passes through. And ironically, it can leave you less hydrated on a cellular level. That's why drinking plain water all day, especially in large amounts at once, sometimes backfires. It can dilute the minerals in your blood and actually trigger cramping in people who are already low in electrolytes. So here's the shift. Think about hydration as electrolyte transport, not just fluid intake. Research from the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition shows that older adults have a blunted thirst response and a reduced ability to concentrate urine. That means two things. You may not feel thirsty, even when you're mildly dehydrated. You may lose fluids faster, especially overnight. And that's exactly when most leg cramps strike early morning hours. When mineral levels are low, circulation is reduced, and fluid balance shifts in the legs. So how do we fix it? Here SIP's a hydration protocol that works particularly well for adults over 60. Morning, start your day with a glass of water that contains a pinch of mineral-rich sea salt and a squeeze of lemon. This provides sodium, potassium, and a small dose of bicarbonate to support pH balance. Midday, have your largest fluid intake here with food. It improves absorption and prevents nighttime bathroom trips that disrupt sleep. Add magnesium-rich foods like beans or leafy greens to your lunch. Evening, instead of drinking large amounts of water before bed, sip a smaller amount of an electrolyte-rich fluid. Coconut water, warm bone broth, or an herbal tea with a pinch of sea salt can be surprisingly effective. You want a trickle of hydration, not a flood. Bonus tip: if you take diuretics or blood pressure meds that increase urination, talk to your doctor about electrolyte support. These medications can rapidly deplete sodium and potassium, which increases the risk of nocturnal cramping. A simple tool to apply: check the color of your urine. Pale yellow means good hydration. Clear means you're probably overdoing it. Dark yellow or amber, you're behind. And don't underestimate food as a source of hydration. Cucumbers, oranges, melons, and cooked vegetables all deliver water in a more absorbable form because they come with fiber and minerals built in. Now, if you're finding this breakdown useful, if it's helping you connect the dots between hydration, cramps, and aging, take a second to like the video or subscribe to the channel. It tells us this kind of content is helping, and it helps us bring it to more people who need it. Back to your body. Hydration isn't a one-time fix. It's a rhythm. And when you tune that rhythm to your body's real needs, not just thirst signals, but cellular requirements, the difference is felt. Less cramping, deeper sleep, stronger, more responsive muscles. And maybe most importantly, peace of mind. The kind that comes from knowing you're not just reacting to symptoms, you're actively creating conditions for your body to function better. And that SIP's a quiet kind of power. We often hear eat more protein as you age. And while that SIP's true, it SIP's also incomplete. Because when it comes to preventing leg cramps, especially in older adults, it's not just about total protein intake, it's about the specific amino acids inside that protein and how those amino acids impact your nerves, your muscle membranes, and your ability to recover after physical activity or even just a long day on your feet. Let's zoom in. Amino acids are the building blocks of protein. Your body uses them to repair tissue, support enzymes, and regulate neurotransmitters. But two in particular, taurine and glycine, stand out when it comes to muscle stability and cramp prevention. First, taurine. Taurine isn't technically an amino acid by structure, but functionally it acts like one. It helps regulate calcium flow in and out of muscle cells, which, as we covered earlier, is crucial for the on-off signal in muscle contraction. When calcium floods in but doesn't clear efficiently, your muscle stays contracted and cramps. Taurine also helps stabilize the electrical activity in both nerve and muscle cells. It acts as a calming agent, reducing excess excitability, especially in aging nervous systems. Animal studies and small human trials suggest that taurine supplementation can reduce muscle cramps and improve exercise tolerance in older adults, particularly those with low dietary intake. Then there's STIT's glycine. Glycine is a calming, inhibitory amino acid, meaning it dampens overactive nerve signals. It's also a major component of collagen, which keeps connective tissue strong and elastic. When glycine levels are low, muscles become more prone to micro-injury, and the neuromuscular system becomes jumpier, less stable. Here's what's important. Older adults often consume less glycine and taurine than they need, especially if they're eating mostly lean muscle meats without organ meats, bone broths, or seafood. And while high-quality protein is essential, the amino acid profile of that protein matters just as much. So what foods support this amino acid balance? 1. Shellfish, especially scallops and clams. These are naturally high in taurine, along with B12 and zinc. Just a few servings a week can significantly raise plasma taurine levels. 2. Bone broth or slow-cooked meats with connective tissue. These are rich in glycine and proline. They also deliver collagen, which supports joint and muscle recovery. A warm mug of bone broth at night can double as hydration and amino acid therapy. 3. Gelatin or collagen powders. These can be an easy supplement source of glycine and proline, especially if your diet is low in slow-cooked or animal skin-based proteins. Just make sure to pair them with vitamin C like citrus or bell peppers, which helps your body synthesize new collagen. And here sips a practical protocol. If you eat animal protein regularly, aim to include at least one glycine-rich or taurine-rich source per day, whether that's a seafood lunch, a bone broth soup, or a simple gelatin-based dessert. If you follow a plant-based diet, consider targeted supplementation with glycine 2 to 3 grams daily and monitor your taurine levels with a health professional if needed. There's also a timing angle here. Consuming glycine-rich foods in the evening may help with sleep and cramp prevention thanks to glycine's calming effect on the nervous system. Some small trials have found that evening glycine intake can reduce core body temperature and improve sleep depth, which may further lower cramp risk. What this all comes down to is structure and stability. You're not just feeding muscles, you're reinforcing the scaffolding that holds them together. You're giving your nervous system the raw materials to stay balanced, calm, and responsive. That's why these amino acids matter, not just for strength, but for resilience. And when your legs feel more stable, more steady, more relaxed, everything else starts to feel more doable, whether it's walking farther, sleeping deeper, or simply moving through the day without that sudden stabbing jolt in your calf. That SIP's the goal. Let SEPs bring it all together. By now, you've seen that leg cramps, especially in older adults, aren't just a hydration issue or a potassium problem. They're a systems issue. A blend of nutrient status, nerve-muscle communication, fluid balance, and structural support. So the obvious question is, what should I actually eat? What are the top foods that, based on current research, reduce leg cramp frequency, support nerve signaling, and strengthen muscle stability? Let's get specific. Here are the top 3 anti-cramp foods, backed by evidence, and exactly how to use them. Avocados. The electrolyte powerhouse. Avocados are rich in potassium, magnesium, and healthy fats, 3 key nutrients that stabilize nerve firing and support muscle function. One medium avocado gives you about 700 milligrams of potassium, nearly 60 milligrams of magnesium, and a hefty dose of monounsaturated fat that helps reduce inflammation in the muscle tissue. But what makes avocados unique is their balance. Unlike bananas, which are high in sugar or salty foods that spike sodium, avocados help restore the potassium to sodium ratio that regulates muscle contraction. They also contain B vitamins that support nerve metabolism. How to use it? 1/2 to 1 avocado daily, ideally with a source of protein or fiber. Add it to eggs, salads, or use it as a base for a savory evening snack. Pairing it with a source of vitamin C like tomatoes or lemon helps optimize nutrient absorption. 2. Pumpkin seeds. The mineral-dense cramp shield. Pumpkin seeds, sometimes called pepitas, are one of the most concentrated food sources of magnesium. Just 1 ounce, about 2 tablespoons, gives you close to 40% of your daily needs. They also provide zinc, iron, and small amounts of tryptophan, which supports serotonin and sleep quality. Studies show that regular magnesium intake is associated with lower cramp frequency in older adults, particularly those experiencing nocturnal leg cramps. Because pumpkin seeds are easy to digest and rich in fiber, they're especially helpful as an evening snack. How to use it? 1 to 2 tablespoons daily. Eat them raw, roasted, or soaked. You can sprinkle them on oatmeal, salads, or blend into smoothies. If you're prone to nighttime cramps, try a small handful 1 to 2 hours before bed. 3. Cooked leafy greens, especially spinach and Swiss chard. The muscle-calming mineral matrix. Cooked greens like spinach and Swiss chard are packed with potassium, calcium, and magnesium, the trifecta for muscle relaxation. They also contain folate and vitamin K, which help support vascular health and blood flow to the legs. What's important here is cooking. While raw greens have nutrients, cooking breaks down oxalates, compounds that can block mineral absorption. This makes the magnesium and calcium in cooked greens more bioavailable, especially for older adults whose digestion is less efficient. How to use it? 1 cup of cooked greens, at least 3 to 5 times per week. Sauté with olive oil and garlic, stir into soups, or mix into omelets. Bonus: add a squeeze of lemon juice at the end to enhance mineral uptake. Want a simple weekly protocol? Daily, half to 1 avocado, 1 to 2 tea-based pea pumpkin seeds. 6 to 8 cups fluid total include herbal tea, broth, or coconut water. At least 1 magnesium or potassium-rich food per meal. 3 to 5 eggs per week. Cooked leafy greens. Shellfish or bone broth. Leg movement before bed, gentle stretching or walking. Evening. Light electrolyte-rich snack, for example. Bone broth plus pumpkin seeds or avocado plus herbal tea. This isn't about hitting perfection. It's about creating a daily environment where your nerves and muscles feel supported, not strained. And if you've struggled with that sudden zap of pain that yanks you out of sleep, you know exactly why this matters. Because nothing steals rest, energy, and confidence like a body that feels unpredictable. But with a few small shifts, you can start to feel that steadiness return, stronger legs, better sleep, fewer cramps, more peace. And that sip's worth showing up for. So let's step back. We began with something familiar, that sudden stabbing pain in your calf or foot that wakes you up at 2 a.m., heart racing, leg locked. And we traced it all the way back to its roots, the nervous system, nutrient imbalances, hydration rhythms, and muscle stability. What we've seen is this leg cramps aren't just random. They're feedback. They're your body's way of saying something's off here, I need support. And the good news is, the solutions are simple, powerful, and fully within reach. We looked at 6 core insights. First, we explored how motor neurons become more excitable with age, and how cramping often starts not in the muscle, but in the nervous system. That's why calming those overactive motor signals is step 1. Then we dove into magnesium, not just as a muscle relaxer, but as a key regulator of calcium flow, nerve firing, and neuromuscular coordination. Through foods like pumpkin seeds and leafy greens, we can restore that mineral balance without pills or guesswork. Next came the subtle but critical balance between potassium and sodium. We saw that it's not just about eating bananas, it's about rebalancing the entire electrolyte system to create a stable environment for your muscles to function. Hydration was another big one, not just more water, but smarter hydration. Fluids that actually absorb, timing that aligns with your body's rhythms, and a focus on mineral-rich beverages and hydrating foods that work with your cells, not against them. Then we looked at the amino acid side of the equation, taurine and glycine in particular. These aren't just for athletes or bodybuilders. They stabilize the nervous system, support connective tissue, and help aging muscles stay calm, strong, and responsive. And finally, we tied it all together with the top 3 anti-cramp foods. Avocados for their electrolyte density, pumpkin seeds for mineral delivery, and cooked leafy greens for complete muscle nutrient support. Together, they form a kind of neuromuscular insurance, food-based tools that work quietly in the background to keep your legs steady and your nights restful. Now here sits what I want to leave you with. This isn't about perfection, it's about consistency. A few small changes, a magnesium-rich snack before bed, an avocado at lunch, a cup of broth or water with a pinch of salt in the morning, can dramatically reduce the risk of cramping, not overnight, but steadily, predictably. And more importantly, this is about regaining trust in your body. Because every time you sleep through the night without that jolt, every time you walk a little farther without that twinge, every time your legs feel reliable again, you're not just improving circulation or hydration or strength. You are reclaiming freedom. So here's your challenge. Try just one of the tools we covered today. Just one. Maybe it's adding cooked spinach to dinner tonight. Maybe it's sipping coconut water after a walk. Maybe it's looking at your sodium-potassium balance for the first time. Small steps, real signals, big results. If you found this helpful, if you learned something useful about your body and how to support it, I'd love for you to like the video, leave a comment with your experience, or subscribe. This channel is here to grow with you, and every time you engage, it helps this science reach more people who need it. Thanks for being here. And more importantly, thanks for taking your health seriously. Your legs will thank you tonight.